Good evening, bosses.
Yeah, you made it back, Mr. CAO.
You know, the weather in near New York, near Buffalo, made that challenge and an interesting life experience. But here I am, back and better than ever.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm that we are streaming, and it is 5:30. You can begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, councils, members of SLT, and of course, viewing public. I see that we do indeed have quorum this evening, so I will call into session this regular council meeting of Monday, December 19th. At this time, I would like to call on Councillor Wink to read the land recognition statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabes peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you, Councillor Wink. I now turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson, that the agenda be amended to add the open session addendum being item number 9.5.1.8, Jonathan Tucker comments, and add the closed session addendum being item 2.3.8 and 2.3.9. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on these amendments to the agenda? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. I do therefore have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the agenda for the December 19th, 2022 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. On the agenda as adopted, is there any further discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, is there any councillor that wishes to declare a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof regarding the agenda? Ms. Councillor Niznik.
Yes, I have a pecuniary interest conflict, item 1 of the closed agenda.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so noted that. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to the hearing of presentations. And we do have a presentation being a 30-year service bar presentation to Fire Chief Robert Limburner. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It is indeed my pleasure today to recognize and present virtually a significant milestone for the Town of Pelham Fire Chief, Bob Limburner. The Chief has been awarded the 30-year service bar from the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management. The Office of the Fire Marshal provides leadership and expertise on fire safety and promotes changes to minimize the impact of fire and other public safety hazards in Ontario. Chief Limburner has provided dedicated service to the town of Pelham as fire chief for over 10 years. He leads the volunteer department in Pelham and supports those who respond to requests for help 365 days a year, day or night. Chief Limburner, thank you for your commitment and congratulations on this achievement. And we give you a virtual clap. Any words, Chief Limburner?
Well, thank you, Mayor, for your kind words. I don't know how you slid this in, but not a person, I'm a big fan for awards and that, but it's been an honor and a privilege to continue to serve the town. I'd like to thank everybody on this call, including the senior leadership team and council, mayor, and previous councils for all their support of the fire department and myself. And it certainly makes my job that much more enjoyable when you have people you work with day in and day out that create a happy and a happy environment. So thank you.
I thank you, Chief Limburner, and obviously 30 years of service to not only this community, but obviously to the other communities you served is indeed a record to be proud of. Again, congratulations. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That does bring us to item 5 of the agenda, and this is the election of deputy mayor for a 2-year term. Mr. Mayor, I will call for nominations. I will call for at least 3 nominations, and that will begin now. Mr. Mayor, I am looking for a nomination for deputy mayor. If you can ask any councilors if they have a nomination to present.
Okay, thank you. Is there I see Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm nominating Councilor John Wink as deputy mayor. Thank you.
Okay, and Councilor Wink, will you accept this nomination?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you. Again to the clerk.
Thank you. I've noted that Councilor Hildebrandt has nominated Councilor Wink, and Councilor Wink has accepted that nomination. To you, Mr. Mayor, I will call for nominations again. Is there any other nominations to be presented?
Is there any other councilor that would like to put forward a nomination? Not seeing any.
Thank
Madam
you.
Clerk?
I will ask for the third and final time if there are any other nominations to be presented with respect to Deputy Mayor. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Last call. Is there any other nominations to be brought forward at this time? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So I have noted that Councillor Wink has been nominated. He has accepted that nomination. As there are no other names put forward, that would be an acclamation. And should Councillor Wink wish, he may speak to this.
Okay. Councilor Wink, any last words? Or famous words, I should say.
Well, I'd like to thank the fellow councilors for nominating me and particularly Councilor Hildebrandt. It's an honor to serve our community. This is my second term, and I think I have a pretty good handle on the procedures and policies of the town. So I feel that I am suited for this position, and I thank everyone, including staff, for all their support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. As Mayor, I look forward to working with you in your new capacity for the next 2 years. I believe this is for, and on behalf of the rest of council, we thank you for accepting the position.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
We will just finalize this with a resolution being put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, and Town of Pelham Bylaw Number 4107/2019, as amended or replaced from time to time, Council for the Town of Pelham appoints Councillor Wink as Deputy Mayor for a 2-year term commencing on the date of which the Deputy Mayor is appointed by bylaw or until successor is appointed, and that the Deputy Mayor shall be the presiding officer at all meetings of Council, including any regular, special, or emergency meeting of Council or committee of Council from which the Mayor is absent or at which the Mayor is unable or refuses to act, and that at such meetings the Deputy Mayor shall act in the place and stead of the Mayor and shall exercise all of the rights, powers, and authority of the Mayor, and that Council direct the Town Clerk to prepare and present a Deputy Mayor appointment bylaw at the next regular meeting of Council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this resolution by any member of council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our next agenda item. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted and as printed, circulated, and read. Being CS 12, 2022, special meeting of council, November 30th, 2022, to C 21/2022, regular meeting of council, December 5th, 2022. Mr. Mayor, please feel free to call for errors or omissions.
Okay, thank you. After viewing these minutes, does any councillor have any errors or omissions to present to the clerk? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I'll start the vote with Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to item number 7. And if any councillor has any items that they wish to lift from the consent agenda, they may do so now. If a councillor just wishes to speak or make comment on an item but not change the resolution, there's no need to lift the item. To you, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to call for anybody to lift an item.
Thank you. Is there any item of the agenda items that any councillor would like to lift at this time? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring you to the consent agenda in block. Certainly, would you like me to call on groups?
Yes, of course.
The first group would be item 9, so that's 9.3.1 to 9.3.2, and this is staff reports for routine nature for information or action. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you. Is there any comments? I see right off the bat we have Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the treasurer. I'm looking at the items page 2, and in particular the calculation of mortgage payments, service payments, etc. And it looks to me like there's a substantial number of surpluses coming from these payments. Mortgage service charge 34,000. My estimate of the lead proceeds 230, and interest looks like it's about 250. Am I right in assuming that all of those will go into the reserves if they're realized at the end of the year?
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have an increase with regards to a couple of the charges because there were 2 new fees that were introduced last year, the ownership change and the mortgage fee change. But you are correct, Councillor Olson, that any surpluses from those accounts definitely go into the working fund reserves. With regards to the investment income, at the end of the year, we have to reallocate out the interest portion that pertains to the various to the obligatory reserves. So we do that first, and then whatever is left over goes into the working funds reserves. So you are correct.
So the end result will be that there is a substantial amount of money going to be transferred into our reserves, I think.
There definitely will be. We just have to do the final calculation of what's being allocated to the other reserves first, but yes.
Okay.
So we have, as the interest rates are higher, and also we have some higher bank balances due to a few of the capital projects that we haven't started. So that's where the cash is coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer and perhaps to Ms. Van Wavensway. I'm noting that on page 2 of the report for the MCC materials, there's a statement here that says materials have gone up, but the income has gone up more. It appears to me that the income has gone up by $10,000 and the costs have gone up by some $33,000. Is that a correct statement?
To the treasurer or to Ms.?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Olson, can you tell me specifically, what are you looking at? You're looking at the
I'm looking at
MCC,
the
page
line
41?
I'm looking at line, it's page 1 on the MCC, and I'm looking at materials and supplies, which is note 7.
Right.
I can probably answer that.
No,
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, what that is indicating that in order to have the supplies to operate the bar area, you will know this statement is up to September the 30th. It's basically the stock that is required to operate the bar area. So you will see over the months to come how the increases in revenues will grow.
So there'll be no more purchases against the revenue, apparently, or small amounts, I guess.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, exactly. As we require more additional stock, well, then the stock is purchased, but you will see a difference in the revenues because this is up till September the 30th.
Right, in the last quarter of the year.
Correct.
So some of the inventory is purchased earlier than the revenue coming in the last quarter. That's what the director is saying.
Yes. Okay, thank you, because this is on a cash basis. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Note number 5, this is the natural gas item. And we are at, we're at 99% of the budget for natural gas. We've spent pretty much the entire $65,000. So is that going to continue, or I guess it's the rates, I suppose?
Yeah, it's through you, Mr. Mayor, it is the rates, but then we also have some savings in, if you look at the hydro line, the hydro line's at 64%. So with the utilities, we've got one that's higher than the other, but overall, we should be fine with the utilities.
Okay.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have more questions, but if somebody else wanted to speak, that'd be fine.
Okay, thank you. At this time, is there any other counselor on that group, 9.1 to 9.3.2? Is there any other comments from any other counselors on that group? Not seeing any. Councilor Olson, did you have any more questions on that group?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I was wondering, we've made a couple of initiatives to save money this year. One was our engagement of a solicitor 4 days a week. The other one was the lighting, the electric lighting that we replaced, and that type of thing. I was wondering if there's a possibility we could see some kind of a post audit to see that those expenditures have given us the savings that we were expecting when we initiated them.
To the treasurer, perhaps?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we can do, I mean, if those are the two particular line items that you're interested at, when we wrap up the year end, we can see where we're at. I know that the legal line is under budget right now, and that has a lot to do with the town solicitor taking on some of the files that we normally would have had external counsel doing that. And with regards to, so it was the legal, what was the other item? I'm sorry.
The other one was the lights.
The lights, yeah. So the lights, there's a timing issue there when, I know they're currently being installed, but it was later in the year that they'll be completed. There'll be some savings, but we know for sure in the 2023 budget, you'll see about $66,000 of savings on the LED lights. So I don't know if the Director of Public Works would like to make a comment on that, because they're still being installed right now.
Okay, we will turn to the Director of Public Works, Jason Marr.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The treasurer is correct. So we're just wrapping up the first phase of that replacement. We're replacing 564 lights out of our some 1,600 street lights throughout the town. That will see a savings as part of the 2023 budget. So that first phase will be completed, and then you'll see that you'll realize those savings next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Mr. Mayor's on the line there. is the Tice Road, your project number RD 1322, is that complete now? That's Effingham Tice Road to Highway 20.
Yes, that project is complete. It did come in under budget. So yes, that is complete.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering about the baseball diamond tractor. We have a quote apparently at $48,000, which is below the well, it's slightly, well, I guess it's on the budget. So is that tractor been ordered now?
Director of Public Works, would you answer that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my understanding is that tractor has been ordered. We're just waiting for delivery on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? One last time on this group of 9.1 to 9.3.2. If not, I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next grouping would be the information correspondence. For information, that's 9.5.1 to 9.5.3. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Is there any counselor that would like to discuss any of these agenda items? And I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to Ms. Weens. Noting the minutes from the directors meeting of the NPCA. On page 2, there's a notation that of a change, I believe, in the amount of buffer to wetlands. It apparently is 30 meters buffer around provincially significant wetlands. And then there's another policy change that says that there's wetlands, or it's an environmental impact study. This could change. Is there an impact from this? And I don't know if you might have an answer to that, because I was thinking about some of the wetlands and that we're trying to protect, whether it's 30 meters or it can be more.
So to the Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, I believe in the minutes from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority Board that that commentary is in relation to proposed changes that the provincial government is introducing or has introduced with respect to the wetland evaluation system, and where they're looking at through that criteria, they're certainly looking at the possibility of reducing buffers to significant wetlands, as well as changes to some of the criteria in terms of how wetlands are evaluated and assessed. And so depending on what is the final changes that the provincial government will introduce, we haven't seen those final changes yet. There is a potential to impact on wetlands in the town of Pelham, as well as wetlands across Ontario.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on these agenda items from any other member of council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
To you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. That is the last item, grouping. So if council wishes, we can go to the vote.
I'm sorry.
Would you like me to go to the vote? That was the last grouping, or is there any other discussion on any of the items?
Okay, thank you. Any other discussions by any other member of council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. It begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to the presentations and reports from council. Members of council, to you, Mr. Mayor, we do have Councillor Olson this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olson, I believe you have a report. You have the floor.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and I have a slide as well that I would ask Sarah to put on the screen. I'm not going to talk to the slide at this moment, but thank you very much. First of all, thank you to council and mayor and council for nominating me to the Transit Commission again. We're coming up to a very critical time, which is the launch of the program on January 1st, when Niagara Regional Transit will take over all the transit operations in Niagara region, including on transit and the scheduled routes. In the past, I guess it's 9 months, we've been under the chairmanship of Mayor Walter Sedzik, who did not run in the last election. And we're now in the interim chairmanship of Matt Cisco, who's the new mayor of St. Catharines. We've hired our staff, and we've completed the full staffing complement. We're led by a very capable person by the name of Carla Stout. On February, we're going to be harmonizing all the fares and all the electronics around the fares and scheduling. And we're going to be populating our advisory committee in the first quarter, and this is going to be an interesting exercise because we want to make sure that vulnerable people and students are included in the bus routes, included in the consideration of the accessibility to our service, and above all, the safety of operators and passengers. The system, as it stands right now, has 150 approximately employees and 170 vehicles, including buses and repair vehicles, etc. We've completed our strategic plan for the next 3 years, and these are the objectives. The people development, and we've managed to complete all of the harmonization of all the contracts, the union contracts with our labor unions. We placed a priority on riders, which is going to be a safety and accessibility. We've done the strategic reviews, and we're going to stand up the service, as I said, on the 1st of January. Of interest to council will be the number of people that we can convince to take part in the advisory committee, because this is going to establish transit for the next. I guess it's going to be almost an infinite time, because this is not going to go away. All of the agreements have been signed with the assumption of the assets, and we've completed the evaluations of all the assets that we've taken from the 4 larger communities and amalgamated into the transit. So I would say that we're making considerable progress, and our next meetings are going to be starting up again sometime in January. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Interesting to see that you've got the all the unions on side and the employees now in place. I know the big cities, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Welland, they are all on side at this point, Councillor Olson, with whether it be with equipment or manpower, I take it?
All the agreements have been signed.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions on this report? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that council receive the verbal update on the Regional Transit Committee from Councillor Olson for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any other discussion?
Okay. Any last opportunities for discussion on the report? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to staff reports. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive report 2022-0286 clerks, amendment to procedural bylaw to permit continued electronic participation in meetings until March 31st, 2023. and that the proposed amendments to the Town of Pelham procedural bylaw as outlined in Appendix 1 be approved, thereby facilitating electronic meeting participation until March 31st, 2023 for council, special council, committee of adjustment, committee of council, and advisory committees. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Yep, thank you. Any discussion on this amendment to procedural bylaw on the electronic meetings going forward to March 31st? I guess if I just have one observation, and probably to either the clerk or or to the CAO. So I see, I know I myself and other councillors have been questioned, especially during the election and especially in the last month, about the when town would allow the residents to partake or to join, to come into the, obviously it's going to be the MCC. And obviously if we extend this agreement, then I take it by the wording of this that well, we won't be allowing the any public to come into the meetings until March, until this has been revisited. Perhaps I will turn to the clerk first. Why are we, is there any way we could amend this, or is this indeed what we do want at this particular point in time?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can provide some comments. With respect to this proposed amendment, this will allow council the opportunity to meet electronically until the end of March. Currently, council is only entitled to meet electronically until the end of December. And that means if council does not pass this tonight, starting in January, council SLT will have to meet in person. There would be no electronic option or hybrid option. As you do know, there is a procedural bylaw before council, which has its first and second reading tonight, and its third and final reading is presumably going to happen at the end of January. If that bylaw does pass as intended and everything runs smoothly, this bylaw being passed tonight would be revoked, and then we will have a hybrid option available to council permanently. Right now, there is no hybrid option for council. This does allow council to meet electronically. I could have put to the end of January, so council could amend the date, but I didn't know if we would have to bring the procedural bylaw that's being proposed back, make any more changes. So this is a little bit of extra cushion time for us. But certainly staff will comply with whatever council wants to do, but do know if this isn't passed as it's presented or similarly so with a different date, starting in January, all members of council and SLT will have to meet physically in person. I don't know if the CAO has other comments.
So thank you for that, Madam Clerk. So Mr. CAO, have in discussions with the other 12 CAOs within the region, I do know that the region that I believe St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, they've been letting their citizens, residents, join their council meetings now for several months, although I have also heard rumblings that some of those municipalities have indeed retracted that because of the high COVID numbers. So I am looking forward to your comments on this particular part of the item.
Well, in fairness, COVID is only one of two motivators, although from where I sit, that's more than adequate. We've all seen the numbers skyrocket recently, and I think every person on this call is aware of someone sick in their private life or amongst their friends and family. That's certainly the case in my universe at any rate. But please understand that next week, that room you're sitting in is going to be open to the elements. I mean, we have a very different reality in Pelham, and we were extremely unfortunate to get government funding, and we're doing a major expansion at Town Hall. And so there's the awkwardness of not being able to meet where you're sitting. So that's a pragmatic reality we have, and we're assuming that the construction will go as planned, and we're assuming there'll be no more. Except this is a project that already at one point in time was about 2.5 weeks behind schedule. So the rubber hits the road when you open the walls. So that's a piece. But what really matters here is if you pass this tonight, at the end of January, you will be allowing for hybrid meetings, which means that one half of hybrid means physical. And by that point in time, we anticipate having the technology established in the Accuracy room, which isn't currently established there, so that we can offer that option and opportunity to residents who are so inclined to physically come out. We're not stopping democracy here. These meetings are broadcast live and can be seen in real time, et cetera, et cetera. It hasn't stopped letters to the editor, newspaper stories that quote all of us verbatim, and comments and complaints and all the rest of it. What does matter, though, is the end of January, as things currently, if you pass this tonight, it will become null and void at the end of January, as the clerk has indicated. At that point, hybrid means physical meetings. It just gives you the capacity to Zoom in like we are now. If one of you is sick or elsewhere or what have you, life gets in the way. So that'll offer flexibility. For the next month, we really need, respectfully, it's very hard for us to offer flexibility. Between construction, high COVID rates, and the fact that technology hasn't been installed yet at the MCC, those are three pragmatic realities, two of which are technical and transitory, frankly. So we've written this report in the way we have because we're strongly endorsing this course of action. Let's keep having Zoom meetings for all of January. The end of January, if you pass your new procedural bylaw, those of you who wish to meet physically can do so. Those of you who wish to meet by Zoom can do so. The public presumably will be able to come in limited numbers, albeit, but to the Accuracy room. And we'll take it from there. The last thing, when we compare ourselves to our neighbors, we can't really compare ourselves very well to Niagara Falls or even to Grimsby. If you've been in their council chambers, they're not double the twice. Like, it's keep going, right? Like, they're much larger rooms and much larger spaces where we can allow some physical distancing, et cetera, et cetera. To my knowledge, only Wainfleet's is smaller. I think that West Lincoln's is a fair bit larger than ours too, if memory serves correct. We have a particularly small council chambers. It was made in a different era with a different mentality, and no one thought this would ever be an issue, but it is now. So we have the second smallest chambers in Niagara, to my knowledge. I think I've been in all of them, and so that's another practical barrier for us, which is why we're trying to outfit Accuracy to give people the option, give residents the option. So this is a coherent plan. It really just means another month of pure Zoom. Thereafter, it's Zoom or physical attendance as you prefer, and we hope to be in a position to offer that option to the public. I can't tell you where we'll be a month from now, but you will get the choice. You have the votes, and you get the bottom line. The buck stops with you. So if you don't like the answer, you have the power to change it. For now, though, we strongly endorse you passing this as it is, because I don't know what the pragmatic alternative is. You force us to rent equipment in a room not properly set up to have physical meetings with people during COVID. We couldn't possibly use the council chambers, or we probably can't use the council chambers. We're not sure on that. That's where we're at. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sear. Obviously, I knew this council chamber was going to be out of play. I just, with the increased size of the Accuracy room, I was wondering if we couldn't move that date up a little bit. But the next council meeting is indeed January 9th. It's only 3 weeks difference between our first meeting in January and when this item is going to be back before council. And to tell you the honest truth, this council, this town is way above some of the other municipalities in the province that don't live stream and don't tape their meetings. And if you want to know what's going on with council, you actually have to be in the council that day, that night, because there's no way of looking at the meeting. So I'm realizing this, the residents of this town have those two options. They can either live stream, or even better, they can look at these meetings whenever they want at their leisure. So it isn't that big a deal, that's for sure. And I appreciate your answer on that. Thank you. Any other Councillor Eckert?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so in listening to the answers of the clerk and Mr. Cribbs, the answer I could give to constituents is this is not written in stone till March 31st. We're anticipating that this is going to start much earlier, probably into the first meeting in February, maybe sooner, but probably earlier in February as opposed to March 31st. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would anticipate it would begin sometime in February. We'll be bringing the final reading for the procedural bylaw for January 30th, because of course we're providing notice through the website and on the newspaper. So the earliest that this new bylaw can be adopted is January 30th. And basically then that is when you're going to have the ability to do hybrids. And of course, we're going to be looking at the MCC and room availability and booking the Accursi room. I'm not sure what might already be there, but we'll be working internally. So I would suggest it's somewhere in February. I don't know if Mr. Krebs has anything further to add.
I would simply agree with that. Fundamentally, there are a couple of variables that are outside our control. We're tracking towards a hybrid system and the capacity to meet physically, and there's no doubt in my mind that that will be achieved in Q1 next year, unless you choose to vote otherwise. But as we're on our current trajectory, somewhere in Q1, you'll be able to have physical meetings. And to each his own at that point in time. So we hope we're offering the best of both worlds. But we don't really control the construction process, not truly. And we don't control infection rates, and we don't control the rate at which the technology is installed. So those are sort of three variables outside our control. We are tracking towards success, though, somewhere in January.
Councillor? Any other comments, Councillor Eckert?
No. No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments on this particular agenda item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0285, City of St. Catharines Dispatch Agreement 2023, and that the dispatch agreement between the Town of Pelham and the City of St. Catharines be approved, and that Council consider approving the associated bylaw. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comments, questions? I see Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's to the treasurer. I have no doubt after reading the contract and reading the need for this that there's a requirement for this. My question is about the financial arrangements described on Schedule A. This is a contract that goes for 15 years, first of all, and it also has a net cost or a cost over the term of the contract of $1.2 million. I would suggest that there's a little bit of weakness in that number because it's based on the inflation rate, which which has adjusters and et cetera in it. But am I understanding this correctly that the cost is going to be 1 million plus? I think with the possibility of something quite a bit more than that.
To the treasurer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to hand this over to the fire chief, Lindbergh.
Okay, to you, Chief.
Myself here. There we go. Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the contract continuation, they've have an increase each year. It varies from 2% to, I think there's a 2.5 and some 3s in there. Most of those numbers are based on their operational increases. So if you look at St. Catharines as a whole in a fire, they're about 93% of their operating budget is wages, and traditionally they're getting 2 to 3% each year. So that's where they base those numbers on. We've been with them for 25 years, and we have signed these long-term contracts with them in the past, and they've pretty well stuck to what, 2 or 3% per year as they have in the past.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm more interested in the escalators that they have built in with the rate of inflation goes up by percentage points. They get a markup on the interest rate or the growth rates, and I just wondered about that. But if the chief says that we've been doing this for 25 years and it's worked, I'm not about to break it, so I'll be voting in favor of it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Eckert?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the chief. Are there alternatives or any alternative that would offer a better deal? Seeing as we've been with them for 25 years, it's obvious that we should renew for another 15. But just to kind of piggyback on Councillor Olson, is this the best option for us?
To you, Chief.
Through Mr. Mayor, through a number of considerations. The first one, foremost, I guess, is mutual aid and working with our partners. St. Catharines dispatches the majority of our municipalities in Niagara, including Haldimand, Norfolk, to our southwest. Niagara Falls dispatches their own, and then there's a Welland has gone to Tillsonburg. So to answer your question, there is an option. We could go out for RFP and get pricing from other providers, which currently there's 2 that I know of. To save money, I doubt very much there's any savings in there, but for continuity and for mutual aid and communications, it keeps us all together as one unit, as a region.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chief. And I've read this report, and I will be supporting this. So,
okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. I got one question myself to the chief. Will you still be employed at the town at the end of 15 years? Maybe you don't want to answer that. That's fine. We'll leave it as a rhetorical question. To you, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckert.
yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That also carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-0288 Corporate Services Volunteer Firefighting Life Insurance Reserve Update, and that Council support the allocation to the Volunteer Firefighter Life Insurance Reserve Fund decrease from $12,500 a year to the premium amount year for VFIS of Canada, $2,500 in 2022, and that Council approve in principle bylaw 4313-2021 be amended to reflect this decrease in allocation from $12,500 to the premium amount and a decrease in the maximum balance of the reserve fund from $125,000 to $10,000. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on this item? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This begins with Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Counselor Eckhart,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, we're on to our next staff report. I do have a motion put forth by Counselor Wink, seconded by Counselor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-287, Recommendation for Zoning Bylaw Amendment, 1145 Pelham Street for information as pertains to file number AM06-2022, and that Council direct planning staff to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for Council consideration at the next regular meeting of Council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any counselor have questions, answers, comments on this item? I see Counselor Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. I may be requesting a motion to divide and separate the motion for separate consideration, depending on how our debate and discussion proceeds tonight. I have no issues with the staff report and will be approving that with no issues. As everyone at the planning meeting heard, I voiced that I would not be supporting the development as proposed. From the response letter from the planning meeting attached to our agenda from UCC, it was clear to me that UCC and I did not have a clear understanding of my position, other than I was opposed to the proposal as presented. So let me try again to be clear, or more clear, the three reasons or questions I still have outstanding and why I haven't supported this application to date. There's three specific reasons. Number one is the traffic study. Number two is the 5 stories. And number three, precedent this application sets in my area. My view of the traffic study. At the planning meeting, I addressed some of my concerns. Let me explain why I have concerns or questions about the traffic study. Let me clearly state, it does not question whether the consultant were professional or the staff were professionals and reviewed the report and approved it. There's no question in my mind that that's all accurate. It comes from my perspective. And let me explain why my perspective is different than possibly those other two agencies. I live south of the proposed development, right on the boundary of Welland and Pelham. I have traveled north and east for the last 50 years. Daily for 30 years while working in St. Catharines and Niagara-on-the-Lake, and over the last 20 years, many times as I head to services offered in the town center or St. Catharines and beyond. The latest traffic study pattern has been disrupted by Pelham Street reconstruction phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 for almost 4 years. Also, the growth of housing in Welland, just south of my residence, has added hundreds of homes and condos, with many more to go. Most of the traffic along those south of the development are trying to find a way around construction in Pelham while heading north and east. It is a caravan of cars and trucks heading to the 406. As an aside, while I was working in Niagara-on-the-Lake, I cycled to work. I could be at the corner of Cataract and Highway 20 almost at the same time as I could with my car. That's how congested the traffic was 20 years ago, and it's only worse today. Coming home, it's the same in reverse. Everyone is avoiding Pelham Street. So up to last year for me, it was south on Rice to west on Merritt to Pelham and heading south to my home. This last year, it was going up to Rice to Quaker. If you lived in Welland, they may have gone as far as Woodlawn before heading east. When the consultant states that the Merritt traffic will head north into town and won't have an impact on the driver, it's because I don't think they live here and understand the traffic from my resident's point of view. Traffic from north to Merritt or exiting to the north off Merritt is not what I see as being the norm for traffic flow. Not having traffic flow normally because of Pelham Street reconstruction over the last 4 years has also resulted in a major disruptor and would have potentially influenced data inputted in the traffic analysis through Google or other such service monitoring patterns. That's my issue with the traffic study. My view with regards to the zoning bylaw, if it passes, allows 5 stories. Let me review this in light of more homes, condos, Bill 23, and what I consider to be the 3 factors that contribute to more homes intensity, and affordability. The fourth floor meets all three factors: affordability, intensity, and more homes. Affordability, because more supply equals lower prices, so they say. Floor 5 does not meet any of these three factors. It has no condos, does not contribute to intensity, and no units for affordability. So why would I approve 5 stories? It doesn't benefit Bill 23, nor does it benefit the town in my view. Let me give me my precedent setting by my approval of this. Let me look at what's happening in Ward 3 and specifically along the roads intersecting Pelham Road going forward. At the corner of Welland and Pelham, we already have an application for 105 Welland with 6-story building. Probably more buildings will be developed on this property, as most likely it will be sold. Let's look at the corner of Pancake, John, and John Street in Pelham. The north side of Pancake, from the west, there's a church with 2.1 acres, empty lot with 1.1 acres that this council has, or the past council, has already had several meetings, plus the 2/3-story apartment building at 1306 Pelham on 0.83 acres. On the south side, you have what is 2 Pancake Lane, the doctor's office, 1.1 acres, that was recently sold to a developer that is now operating as a tattoo place for the moment. And then the raised 2- and 3-story apartment building, 1302 on 0.83 acres. Across the road and south of John Street, the corner lot seniors have already been approached by developers to sell their property because of its size and location. And south of it has already been sold once and to a developer and has been rezoned and resold again. These are the prime candidates, in my view, for the next series of development applications. Question: 5 may be today's precedent, but where will we end up tomorrow if we approve 5 today? In conclusion, I am not against development that meets Bill 23 and helps our intensification goals and produces more affordable housing. I am against and will not support a 5-story building that does not meet this criteria. I have stated, and I also think that the traffic study may require another review. Thank you for your indulgence in my long presentation tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I did indeed give you more leeway than I normally would. You seem to go a little bit off the subject. However, Ms. Weens, any questions or comeback on the councillor's concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I mean, certainly Councillor Hildebrandt has identified, the intensification pressures along Pelham Street and Welland Road, that corridor. I'm going to tell you that that's not surprising. Those pressures are going to continue. And typically along arterial roads and collector roads is where you do want to see the intensification go versus intruding into the established residential neighborhoods. The streets, in terms of the capacity of those streets to handle traffic, the capacity is there. And we know that some of the travel patterns will shift once Merritt Road is extended, but that is still a few years out. So I don't want to really get into a debate about the traffic report per se, but there will certainly be changing traffic and travel patterns as both Welland grows and Pelham grows. That's to be understood. And those modelings and projections in terms of those travel patterns are taken into consideration when transportation master plans are developed to identify where roads need to be improved and the timing on which those improvements are to take place. So that is kind of the summary on the traffic. And with respect to precedent, Planning legislation is quite clear. We have to look at these applications individually on their own. There is quite clear case law to that effect, and we don't consider kind of, precedents in terms of the analysis or review that we undertake on these from a planning perspective. And so we don't look at, whether or not something was approved somewhere else and the precedence that might have on an application. We look at each individual application on their own and evaluate them based on their merits. So that's my comment with respect to precedence.
Okay, so thank you, Madame Ween, or Ms. Weens. So Councillor Hildebrand, I believe you requested that this be split into two items?
If no other councillor had another comment to make, yes, I will request a motion to divide and separate the motion for separate consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Madame Clerk, that doesn't require a seconder, does it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you are correct. No seconder is required.
Okay, excellent. So we have other councillors wishing to speak on this. Councillor Olson?
I think Councillor Niznik was ahead of me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Niznik, go ahead.
Thank you. So it's not about the split. It's just with regard to comments about the zoning bylaw amendment. I just wanted to kind of voice some opinions, I guess it would be. I don't have any further questions for Ms. Weens at this point, but I just want to, I know the public are watching, and I think I just owe them an explanation for my conclusion and where I'll be voting. So I have done a lot of consultation with both the residents who are not in favor of the development, as well as I've talked to the town planning department. We had a very in-depth meeting with them. I also received several letters of support, supporting the development. And as well, I did take a preliminary planning course because I am new to this sort of decision-making process. So it was a huge learning curve for me. So I really wanted to do a fair and concise and well thought out decision before I came to a conclusion on this. So in summary, I've got 4 points to make, or 3 points, I'm not sure. But in my opinion, I think this building is preferable to a commercial development, which is its current zoning right now. I grew up on Highway 20 across from the log cabin. So in my time living there, we've got a 24-hour gas station. We have a long-term Tim Hortons. If this is turned down, a commercial property could go in there and you could have a bar, a service shop, traffic coming in and out on a continual daily in and out, day-to-day, ongoing basis. So having lived on Highway 20, I feel a residential development would be preferential to this. A quiet residential building is much less intrusive on neighbors, both for noise, traffic, and lighting. I think the fact that the owners are planning to maintain ownership and have committed to ensuring that they and their tenants will be good neighbors. I think that's a huge commitment going forward. They are local town members. They're not developers from Toronto. They are local business owners. I've seen in other towns, they also have some businesses in other towns, and I've seen the wonderful buildings that they've renovated in those, and they maintain them to the nth degree beautifully. Also, the town planning department and the responses from Upper Canada consultants, I think, address the concerns of both residents and myself in a respectful and truthful manner. And I'm confident that the development will endeavor to minimize its impact on residents who live nearby. I think the top floor, it is being considered a 5th floor. However, it's really kind of set back. It's quiet. There are no actual residents on that level. So I think it will be just more used for a time-to-time occurrence when they have a family event that they need to use. So I think the fifth floor will be a fairly quiet floor as a regular thing. And I think we need to consider what our entire town needs in terms of growth and a variety of quality homes. I think this is going to be a rental development that will support both residents who do want to downsize, or even young professionals who prefer more carefree housing. So those were my comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that every applicant deserves to have their application reviewed by council separately and not in the package. I think this is the proper way to go, and I thank Ms. Weems for that comment. And I thank Councillor Niznik for her comments. My chief concern at this point is the top floor, and I think it's set back from the side, so it's not going to be an issue. I agree with all of her points, and I'll be voting in favor of it as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo many of the comments that Councillor Niznik brought forward, and also building on Councillor Olson's comments. The fifth floor that's being in question, if they did not have that common room up top, there would still be elevator shafts and whatever. So there's still going to be something sticking out on that fifth floor anyway. The building, or that fifth floor, is only covering 1/3 of the floor footprint. So it's not a large area. So I don't have issue with it. A lot of the reports bring forward, I'm always concerned about shadow, and the shadow study shows that there's going to be minimal impact on the neighboring properties throughout the year. Yeah, there's going to be a bit, but it's minimal. The footprint of the building is quite adequate. There's sufficient parking. Parking's almost 1.5 per lot. The new zoning bylaw, although not in place, is 1.25. So the parking is good. The traffic, I hear where Councillor Hildebrand is coming from, but by the end of 2024, Pelham Street is going to be fully complete, and that's going to be around the time that this building would be finished. So the traffic, I don't think, will be an impact yet. Right now, we're all finding ways of circumventing traffic on Pelham Street, but that's not going to be forever. I do like the proposal that it is going to be an apartment building. We've looked at developments in the past term and starting this term, and every multi-unit building is a condo of separate ownership of individuals. Whereas, and I've always asked the question, like, is this going to be an apartment building? No, Councillor Wink, it's not. Well, this one is, and to build on Ms. Ween's comments, like, it's more preferable to have a multi-unit building on an arterial road. You don't want something like this built in the middle of a subdivision. So if they're not going to be built on an arterial road, where the heck can we put them? So long story short, I'm going to be supporting this application.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Wink. Any other councillor? And I see Councillor Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments are just based on what Councillor Hildebrand was speaking about. I think we need to be making some decisions based on the future down the road, 5-10 years. I think that there may be some traffic issues that he has brought up in the short term, but I think 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road, this is going to be a forgotten issue because the rest of the infrastructure will have caught up. And I don't necessarily see the point in delaying a building like this to wait for the completion of Merritt Street or Quaker Road or South Pelham. So I just want to commend, first of all the residents in the area for their thoughtful comments, their concerns on this. They were very well thought out, and I don't blame them for having those concerns. But I also want to commend both the developer and our town staff for taking the time to explain all of those issues very well. And it made my decision a little bit easier, and I will be supporting this motion as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from any other councillor? And I see Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciated the comments made by Councillor Niznik and Councillor Wink. They highlighted some key items that I've been debating in my own mind, but also listening to residents as well as getting letters from them and letters in support as well as letters against, and that's not uncommon and not unexpected. As Councillor Wink noted, the footprint on the 5th floor is for a common room, but it's also mechanical, as he noted. It's for the operation of the facility itself. Parking and lighting was being brought up, and with the advent of the new lighting facilities, et cetera, that are available, I think these can be minimized, and through a site plan agreement, work very heavily relative to providing, let's see, a degree of light protection for the neighboring residents. Something has been brought up of thinking about this town 5 and 10 years into the future. I watch with great interest the movement of GO train service and other things, which are going to dramatically increase pressures on the town of Pelham, as it is a highly desirable community to live in. At the same time, there are a number of people who live in the town of Pelham that would like to stay in Pelham, but there aren't places for them, quote, to sell their existing home or move elsewhere and remain in the town. This particular facility, to be very honest, looks like an opportunity for a number of people within the town to remain within the town, but not be homeowners. So it is providing. People have been concerned, saying this has to be affordable or attainable housing. Until those terms are fully defined, I think it's one of those mugs games that are played by using particular terms. I've looked at the shadows. I've looked at traffic, having been involved with issues that have been challenged at another level of appeal, and how they're viewed upon. In fact, they become de novo and take everything looked at as brand new, and precedence is never considered part of the package. So as Councillor Hildebrand brought up about precedence, that really, and I appreciate Ms. Wien's outlining precedence is not something that goes in, as well as you can't lump it in with multiple other projects that may or may not come into fruition. So going through, like I say, with great challenges, but appreciating the comments of the other councillors for this particular development at this particular location that could have been a high traffic commercial under its current zoning. I am going to look to support the application for the rezoning.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Kerr. I believe I'll ask one more time. Any other comments from any secondary comments from any councillors? And I don't see them. My own comments are that we either go up or we go out. That's what the provincial government has said. Everybody knows that. We've used up, we've gone too often. We have gone out Urban sprawl has joined cities, villages that never used to be joined. Those spaces have filled in. It doesn't matter whether you're talking the region or Durham region, wherever. The urban sprawl has taken a lot of farmland out of production. Myself, I think that we have to start going up if we're going to get to these densities. And as most councillors have said, if we're not going to build on an arterial road, 4 or 5 story building, I don't know what would be a better place. So I also will be voting in favor for this development. Any other comments? If not, I shall turn to the clerk. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This motion has been split, so we're going to be considering the first paragraph, which is being put forward by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Niznik. And just for clarity of the record, I will read that. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2022-287, Recommendation for Zoning Bylaw Amendment 1145, Pelham Street for information as it pertains for file number AM 06-2022. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Again, one last shot at comments or questions? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first paragraph does carry. That does bring us to the second paragraph. And again, the motion is being put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Niznik. And it is, and that council direct planning staff to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council consideration at the next meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, thank you. One last chance at discussion on this item. Not seeing any hands, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
No.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the Council for the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, the following bylaw do now read a first and second time. 14507/2022 being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the Town of Pelham Council, its committees, the conduct of its members and calling of meetings, and to repeal and replace bylaw number 4107/2019 as amended. And that Council for the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration of the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same. And that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 4504/2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 3728/2016 to establish 2023 fees and charges to be collected by the Corporation of the Town of Pelham, and to repeal bylaw number 441/2022 as amended. 4505/2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4107/2019 as amended by bylaws number 4296/2020, 4362/2021, and 4422/2022 being bylaws to govern the proceedings of the Town of Pelham Council and its committees and conduct of its meetings, and the meetings to provide for electronic meeting participation for Council of the Town of Pelham, the Committee of Adjustment and Advisory Committees. 4506/2022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4314/2021 to establish a reserve fund for the volunteer firefighters' life insurance. 4508/2022 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with Mountain View Homes Niagara Limited and the Corporation of the Town of Pelham, Park Place South Subdivision, Mountain View Homes Niagara Ltd, and the Corporation of the Town of Pelham, file number 26T1902/2020. 64509-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the computer-aided fire dispatch agreement with the City of St. Catharines and to repeal and replace bylaw number 3930-2017 and 4084-2019. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion from any councillors on these bylaws? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our resolution to move in camera. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as follows. D, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations. 2 items, consideration of appointments to statutory advisory committees and external boards. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. If council can give me a moment to stop this streaming and the recording. One moment, please.
Of course.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have confirmation that we are now streaming. To you, Mr. Mayor, we are in live session, and I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that council adjourn the in-camera session and that council do now rise with no report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion, council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the next portion of our meeting, which is the appointments to statutory advisory committees and external boards. To you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council appoint the following individuals to the Committee of Adjustment, being Brenda Stan, Colin McCann, Don Robert, Isacia Blanche, and John Kappa. To you, my apologies, and that council direct the town clerk to prepare and present the necessary appointment bylaw at the following regular meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the names put forward? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Do I vote on this?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Niznik. No, you declared a conflict of interest. Thank you. I have noted that. Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. For the next committee, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that council appoint the following individuals to the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, being Dan Whipple and Reese Evans, and that council direct the town clerk to prepare and present the necessary appointment bylaw to the following meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, is there any other discussion?
Thank you. Any further discussion on this list? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council appoint the following individuals to the Lincoln Pelham Public Library Union Board, being Andrew Cologioni, Nicole Nolan, Jamie Toms, Linda Root, and Councillor Niznik. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion. Oh, sorry, and that council direct the town clerk to prepare and present the necessary appointment bylaws to the following regular meeting of council. Is there any other discussion?
Thank you. Any further discussion? And I see Councillor Nesnick.
Well, sorry, I just happened to see on the list that there's 6 places, not just 5.
Thank you.
Is that an old one?
That's an old resolution. There's only 5 points on the
Thank
resolution.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments on the list put forward? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. With respect to the next board, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that council appoint the following individuals to the Niagara Peninsula Energy Inc. Board of Directors, Councillor Hildebrandt and Councillor Kerr, and that council direct the town clerk to prepare and present the necessary appointment bylaws at the following regular meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this list of names? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries.
I can see you, John. I can't see anybody else.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't
Open
see
the
no
other eye.
contact. Oh, there we are.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that council remove Lisa Hahn immediately from the Peninsula West Power Inc. Board of Directors, and that council appoint the following individuals to the Peninsula West Power Inc. Board of Directors, being Councillor Hildebrandt and Councillor Kerr, and that council direct the town clerk to prepare and present the necessary appointment bylaws at the following regular meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this list? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, those are all of the appointments to be considered tonight. Those committees are all full. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be resolved that the following bylaw be ready first, second, and third time and passed, being bylaw number 4510-2022 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council for the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 19th day of December 2022. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on the bylaw? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that the regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for January 9th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on adjournment? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The vote begins with Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry, and it is 8:24 p.m., and you can gavel out your meeting.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night, Brian.
Good night, sir. Merry Christmas.
You know, it's great to support the underdog. Tonight I'm cheering for the Packers.